Paramount CEO Bob Bakish was indeed fired just before the earnings call yesterday, which if you blinked, you missed it because it was gone in 60 seconds. Much like the remaining board members and the newly appointed CEO by committee, they wanted to get out of there as fast as humanly possible, and we were there to witness it. Check this out.
RENEGADE Online.
Of our website. I also want to note that we will not be taking questions following our prepared remarks.
Whoa!
The main purpose of today's call is to provide you with the information regarding our first quarter 2024 performance.
What?
Now I will turn the call over to George.
Thanks,
wow.
Jamie. First, we want to thank Bob for his many years of leadership and steadfast support for all Paramount Global businesses, brands, and people. Now, Chris, Brian, and I want to speak briefly on our partnership, our excitement about this collaboration, and what we're addressing as our first order of business. Let me start by saying that Paramount Global has the greatest content in the world. That is the most important point. We've got incredible assets at this company, both in what we produce and the amazing people who make it all possible. Everything will build from that. And now over to Chris.
Thank you, George. And just as important is the fact that we've all worked together collaboratively for years and have known each other for decades. It's a true partnership. We have a deep respect for one another, and we're going to lead and manage this company together. On that note, we're finalizing a long-term strategic plan to best position this storied company to reach new and greater heights in our rapidly changing world. The plan is focused on three pillars. First, make the most of our hit content. Second, strengthen our balance sheet. And third, optimize our streaming strategy. And now here's Brian.
Thank you, Chris. George, Chris, and I have been collaborating with each other for years, transforming our businesses and, most importantly, making hit films and television, which is the core of Paramount Global. Each of us has deep industry knowledge, relationships, and experience as business leaders and creative executives. We will bring all of that to bear as we chart a course forward for our company. We look forward to coming back to you in short order to share our plan and discussing it all in detail at that time. Thank you, and now here's Naveen.
Thank you, Brian, and good afternoon, everyone. In Q1, we generated significant growth in earnings and free cash flow and improved our balance sheet.
Soon after.
With that, we'll conclude our first quarter earnings call. Thank you for joining us.
Wow.
That was fast.
Wow.
Seems like they were in a rush to get out of there.
They were.
Yeah, that was it.
And going off of the super chat you had earlier, it seems like they're in a rush. I was going to say, it felt like you had it on like 1.5 times speed there, Valiant. I was going to say, check the speed, man. Like
they did not even bring up the slides. They didn't post them on the Paramount website. Paramount usually has, as they're going through full slides, they go through details. I actually, let me show you what I'm talking about. You
that
can't
wasn't
even
like 10 minutes.
No, you cannot even find this right now. I had to go to the SEC website to pull the filing for this earnings call.
They tried to hide it, in other words.
Yeah, they didn't even put the slides in the presentation because they had no intention of going through them. It was, hi, Bob was a great CEO. He's not here anymore. We won't be taking any questions. Here's the earnings call. Bye. That was it.
And they also, let's forget, they did thank Bob one more time, and they sorry, and they also said that the rest of the monkeys that have been destroying the entire studio will now be running it in his place. So
yeah,
I don't know who's worse, the Bob Bakish or the rest of the lunatics now running the asylum.
That was absolutely the most stunning thing I've ever seen in my life. Look, they knew they were going to fire Bob Bakish today, and they did. Well, they came to an agreement and he stepped down. No, he was fired. Period. End of story. He was fired. It broke over the weekend that he likely would not even be on this earnings call. He was not. He has already been terminated. They cobbled this Hail Mary, holy crap, crisis mode earnings call where they're like, well, we've got to get out here and say something. And so this is what they did. What you heard, and it was a round robin. I didn't even catch who was who. Brian Robbins, not to be confused with Brian Roberts, who is the CEO of Comcast, but right. Brian Robbins, who is who's the head of Paramount Studios, the movie and TV side of things. And then I think the CFO, I forget his name, was one of the ones.
Chris McCarthy and Brian Robbins and George Cheeks. That's who did it, I believe. I don't know who the chick was, but yeah.
Yeah.
I have to say, this sounded like something that the personal secretary of the CFO threw together in a lunch break.
They did.
They forgot they had an earnings call tonight. And they just had to cobble something together. Obviously, that's not what happened, but that's what it sounds like.
Well, it's more the other side of it. What you said before, they're trying to hide this thing. Like,
obviously, yeah.
The replay is already up. This is how bad it is.
8 minutes and 50 seconds.
And that's with the compliance disclosure. Listen.
Turn the call over to Jamie Morris, Paramount Global's EVP Investor Relations. You may now.
Okay, so first it was Jamie Morris, Executive Vice President of Investor Relations. That's like the Alexia Quadrani from Disney, Investor
Begin
Relations.
your conference call.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us for our first quarter 2024 earnings call.
Wow.
I also want to note that we will not be taking questions following our prepared remarks.
That was the first thing. I was like, okay, we're
That's
a minute.
That's pretty much all you missed. Yeah, Andre, sorry.
Yeah, I heard that because I was watching the show and I was like thinking, okay, this says everything.
Yeah.
And now we know where we're going here. The moment they go there, we are not taking questions because we have something we want to hide. We just listen because we must talk and then go away. That's what they're saying.
All right.
The main purpose of today's call is to provide you with the information regarding our first quarter 2024 performance. Now I will turn the call over to George.
Thanks, Jamie.
Okay, now the earnings call begins. So of 8 minutes and 50 seconds, we've already burned 135 in compliance disclosure. The total earnings call was basically 7 minutes and 20 seconds long.
6 minutes.
I was just going to say, this is probably the first earnings call where you could listen to the entire thing again and again, and the show would still not even reach an hour yet, because we're only 48 minutes into the story.
I want to thank Bob for his many years of leadership and steadfast support for all Paramount Global businesses, brands, and people.
That's it. That's how they announced he was fired on the earnings call. We want to thank Bob for all of his years of leadership, and we need to get out of here because our butts are clenched right now. That was it.
Any questions about Bob, about Skydance, about Sony?
No,
anything.
Okay, so here's the problem right now. This is why they're not talking about anything. This is why they wanted to get the hell out of there as quick as possible. Honestly, I don't even know if Bob Bakish was still in the big chair today for this earnings call. I don't know that this call would have gone much differently in terms of questions, and here's why. Okay. Let me familiarize everybody out there who doesn't know, and let me go ahead and pull this back up. I did an article this morning. I wrote an article for That Park Place, kind of covering this since we knew it was coming up. Put a video out this morning that was clipped from yesterday's live show. It was the final segment, and I think by that point I know it was getting late. We were getting long in the tooth on the show. Some of the people had already checked out, and that's cool. We understand. But let me show you here what I'm talking about. So people understand, please go check out the article on That Park Place. You can review it. But this was this morning. It looked like, we said, hey, it looks like Paramount CEO Bob Bakish is going to be fired. Earnings call crisis today. Well, you just heard it. That's how you handle crisis mode. You get in, you say what you got to say, you get the hell out of there, and you don't take any questions. But the thing here, and you'll see in this article and link to the video from this morning, is they're explaining some of this. Here's the deal. Skydance, obviously, who is managed by David Ellison. David Ellison is the son of Oracle founder and bajillionaire Larry Ellison. Dude has his own private island in Hawaii. Okay? That's what kind of money we're talking about. So Skydance, who was responsible for making things like Top Gun Maverick and Mission Impossible and many others, and they've worked with Paramount, they've worked with Apple on projects. Good outfit, has made some very good products. They want to basically merge / take over by Paramount. There's a few issues, though. And this has been part of the angst with the shareholders. And so people understand there are two distinct classes of shareholder at Paramount. Okay.
Yeah, this is what I wanted to ask you about, because I know there's been some issues with how some of the shareholders are perceiving the either merger or sale going forward. Sorry.
No, you're right. That's absolutely true. So let me show you what I'm talking about just to make it abundantly clear. If we go to, this is the ticker symbol that everybody's familiar with. And people were asking about, oh, well, this would cause problems. Look, when it was announced yesterday over the weekend that Bob Bakish was getting terminated, this morning Paramount opened up 6%. Okay, that was investor reaction to that. Very positive. When you buy this share of stock, PARA, this is what everybody knows as Paramount. This is what you get to buy as Joe individual. You own the stock. You have no voting rights. You do not get a proxy. You do not vote at the annual shareholder meeting in June. This is just, you have the stock. That's it. You have risk, but you have no vote. The voting share of stock that has the votes that you cannot get your hands on is this, PARAA. That is the 77% of those shares right there are what Sherry Redstone owns. That's what's in National Amusements, right, Shep? Okay? Those shares get to vote. The other shares do not get to vote. And that's not like it's super secret. I mean, it's one of those things, hey, buyer beware. And this, we've talked about, people have asked about share classes before. That's why you have A shares, B shares, all this. Some have voting power, some don't. Well, the shares that are largely publicly traded in Paramount do not have really voting power. So here was the deal. Skydance was going to come in, was going to buy the voting shares from Sherry Redstone and National Amusements, her 77% stake. She was going to get, or National Amusements was going to get, $2 billion in cash for that. The actual B share, the people that owned Para, that you see here on the screen, would basically get stock in the newly reformed company. No cash compensation, no nothing. Which isn't illegal or anything, but for the shareholders that own PARA, it's not the best deal in the world. Sherry gets to walk away with $2 billion in cash. So that was pissing some people off, obviously. So the dynamics of the deal over the weekend, it was rumored, this according to CNBC's Alex Sherman, who reported on this on CNBC earlier today, and I think yesterday, that he was hearing rumors earlier this morning that the deal from Skydance was being changed a little bit, that Sherry Redstone would be getting less cash, and that some cash would be afforded to the B share stockholders as a partial cash buyout, trying to make things more amenable. Okay, so that's why that's going on. That
makes more sense now than because I was trying to figure it out myself. Thank you, Valiant.
Yeah. So here's the deal, though. The exclusivity period for this deal ends Friday this week, May 3rd. Skydance and Paramount have to come to an accord, or really Skydance and National Amusements and Paramount have to come to an accord by then. Otherwise, this window of exclusivity will expire. And that's where this other adjacent rumor has been floating around that has some merit to it, because I don't think the trades are making this up, is that you have Apollo Global Management out there.
With Sony.
They're coming in, right, and at first they were saying, well, we're going to come in with an all-cash offer, and it's going to be a whopper, $26 billion all cash.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, because, Valiant, that was my question from the start, is how much does Skydance need to buy out Sherry? Because that's what I noticed from the very start. I'm like, Skydance, even if they have a partner, because they had another one before, I can't remember, was it Redbird or something like that? Mm-hmm. Their companies, they don't have enough money. Right, their company's not worth enough.
Larry does.
He does, but that's what I'm just trying to get to, is they have to have some other third party get involved. Well, or there's no way Skydance could afford this unless, like you told me, and that's what I was trying to figure out, was the whole how Sherry Redstone factored into this.
But technically, think about this, Tom. You don't have to make a cash offer to the people that own this stock, right? PARA.
Right.
You don't need them. You need the shares that can vote. Who's got 77% of those? You buy out Sherry Redstone. That's the way this company was set up. That's the Redstones did this. Sumner Redstone did this with Sherry years ago. They designed this so that they would always have control in perpetuity, but they'd still get to publicly trade shares to raise capital for Paramount. You just don't get to vote like they do. So that's what he's doing. He's like, hey, we're going to take these shares, we're going to merge this, then they're going to value Skydance at $5 billion, and then it's even more convoluted than what AT&T did with Warner Brothers and Discovery, I think.
You wonder why I'm confused.
Exactly. So what do you think the shareholders, what do you think the people that own PARA feel like right now? Because they don't know what the hell is going on. So this is why Apollo's coming in saying, hey, look, we're going to buy the whole lot. We're going to buy the A shares, the B shares. We're going to make everybody happy. We're going to come in. The market cap of Paramount is $8.45 billion. Reportedly, if it's true, that means Apollo is offering more than 3 times, or roughly 3 times in cash, what the market cap of Paramount is, at least on the shares. That's pretty hot. And of course, the question is, where the hell is Apollo going to get this money? And this is where the name Sony floated in, saying, well, Sony's out there. Now, the problem, of course, with Sony is that what are the chances that the FTC and the FCC are going to approve such a merger? That Sony would come in, like they gobbled up TriStar in Columbia years ago. Now they're going to come up and gobble up Paramount and CBS, a broadcast, an over-the-air broadcast major network and radio system. It's probably not going to go through, right? I don't know if Sony's really going to dance with that because they'd have to tie up capital for potentially years as it went through regulatory scrutiny and may not have a high chance of happening. This is why Skydance was kind of a pretty good person to make this happen, because they're kind of a mid-major. They're not another super major player out there that's gobbling up another super major player. That's what
one thing Sony has going for them, unlike some of the other possibilities, is they don't have a huge communications company behind them, right? Like, that's the thing. So I wonder if will that factor in if they wanted to, because that's what I'm hearing now. Is it almost sounds like Sherry's cock blocking Sony and Apollo with
well, no, the
Skydance
contract,
in a way.
Okay, the agreement they have right now would be the block, right? It's exclusive. Right now, Skydance and Paramount, along with the Redstone National Amusement Group, those are the only participants in this deal. Now, if this is why, or part of the reason why Skydance wants to extend this, because it isn't just about Friday. Here's the second part of the problem, y'all. Pay attention. Y'all remember the whole issue that Disney had a few months ago with Charter Spectrum? And they Charter Spectrum called Disney's bluff and they pulled them. They just said, fine, we're not paying it. And ESPN went dark right at the beginning of football season for 2 weeks, 14 million households in America. And it was like, holy crap. And Disney finally were like, okay, we'll basically give you everything you asked for. Okay, guess what? Paramount and CBS, and of course, all the cable stations that Paramount has under its wing, in tandem with CBS, they don't have a carriage deal in place, a renewal ready to go with Spectrum Charter. Guess when that expires? Tomorrow night at midnight, Tuesday, April 30th. So if they still don't have a deal tomorrow night, and Spectrum says, like they did with, he's like, hey, we did this to Disney. Do you think we will think twice about doing this to you? Fine. Boop. Pop you off the air. Guess what happens to the value of Paramount if they don't have a deal with Spectrum?
Well, yeah, it'll plummet. And I don't mean to ask so many questions. So, I'm just trying to wrap my head around all this stuff.
The point is, what do you think Skydance is waiting for?
The value to go down.
Well, either that or Skydance has to find out, wait, are we gonna come to a deal? What is the deal with Spectrum going to look like? Because we have no idea how to value what the future...
Well, if there is no deal, the valuation gets blown in the water. If there is a deal, then the valuation can be determined.
Exactly. That's it. Right now, they can't even make a valid determination on what the value is because we don't know what this new deal... Certainly, they're going to come to an agreement. They're not just going to disappear altogether.
That's why we got a 6-minute earnings call, because they're still negotiating in the back. You got to get back to that.
This is why Bakish is gone.
At such prices, they don't even have time to check in with Wall Street.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.